Okay, so as everyone's getting in, I'm just going to start the presentation. So, welcome. My name is Toby Rodriguez. I am the current president for NER-AMTAS. I'm so happy that all of you are here. And let's begin. And excuse the train noises, I live by a train, so it might be too loud. Okay, so this is the current schedule for the presentations for today and tomorrow. So we have one at 11 a.m. to 11:45 with Alec and Sarah. And then later on, we do have a presentation in the evening. So that one's by Emily Cropo. There is a separate Zoom link for that one. So based on the email that I sent, the link should be in that. And then tomorrow we have our three presenters with Svetlana, Emma in her group, and Adri as well. All right. So a few of the NER-AMTAS board couldn't make it today, so I'm just going to do a slideshow on them and who they are. So again, my name is Toby. I am the current NER-AMTAS president. I'm a senior at Anna Maria College. Next is Emily Cropo. She is the president-elect who also goes to AMC, like myself. The next three are the vice presidents for the schools. Adri, she's right here. She's the vice president for Anna Maria. And then we have Maria, who is the vice president for Berkeley. And then for Leslie, we have Catherine with the glasses. She's from Leslie. And then next we have our treasurer, Kitty Coolidge from Leslie as well. And then our secretary, Taylor Burnett. Our chair of advocacy, Sarah Ames, who's also from Leslie. Our chair of public relations, Shailaja Sundar from Berkeley. And then lastly, our parliamentarian, Bridget Venuti from AMC. So we do actually have available board positions. We have the vice president for Westfield State and the vice president for URI, which is the University of Rhode Island. You must be an AMTA member to run. If you know anyone who goes to these schools or who would like to run, just shoot them my way. This is our email, NER-AMTASstudents@gmail. We would look forward to having them on the board because, you know, they are our two most newest programs. And, you know, having that connection and sharing information would be totally cool to have them on board. So, yeah. And then these are the t-shirts that we are thinking of selling online. They have not been out yet, but we are in the process right now of making an online website so everyone can be able to shop. This is the current color that we offer, but we're working more towards offering other colors just in case. And then we do have a special video from Lee Kinvey, who couldn't make it today, but let's play it.
Toby, I cannot hear anything.
You can't hear? Hold on. Let me stop. Hold on. Let me stop the share. Give me a thumbs up once you're able to hear it.
Hello, Passages, and welcome to the 22nd Annual New England Region Passages Conference. It occurs to me that when I started this conference, many of you were not born yet. So we really have been doing this for a whole generation now. And I just could not be happier that it's still alive, that it's still growing, and that you all are continuing to evolve the conference into what you need it to be. I hope we all keep growing and learning more about ourselves through our whole lifetimes. The more you understand about yourself, and the more authentically and wholeheartedly you can be in the world and with your clients, the better therapist you'll be, and the happier you'll be. So I'll lead by example here. In the last couple of years, I have realized that my gender is way more non-binary than anything else. And so I have changed my first name to Lee. It's just L-I, and I'm using they, them pronouns now. I hope each of you can lead with open-hearted curiosity today. I hope each of you, as you're attending sessions of your peers, can think of a question that really interests you in the session, a question that comes out of your curiosity, and then offer it to the presenter as a gift. Because a good, open-hearted question that really comes out of what someone said, what they offered, that's a gift. So see if you can give a couple of gifts today. Thank you to the organizers, thank you to the presenters, and thank you to everyone attending sessions. I hope you have a wonderful Passages Conference.
And that's everything. As we get to the presentations, I did want to say a special thanks to Kayla Daly, all of the music therapy advisors for each school, like Lisa Summer, Joy Allen, Tim Honig, Nicole O'Malley, and so much more. And also Carol Beth Thomas, because, without you guys aiding to our education, we wouldn't really learn as much about music therapy and what it could entail and, what it could do for us, but like how we can show our clients the way through music. So right now it is 10:48. We do have Alec's presentation at 11 a.m. But Alec, if you wanted to go a little earlier or just stick with 11 a.m., you can feel free to do either or.
Can I say something, Toby, before we move forward? First of all, I think you should stick with the schedule just so that people are planning to show up for a particular thing. They won't have missed the beginning of it. So I think it makes sense for Alec to start at 11. It occurs to me that it's probably hard for people to get here during this time. So, they may just be getting there in time for that. But anyway, that's not what I really wanted to say. What I really wanted to say was that I have been at every Passages conference for 22 years. Lee Kimby was a student at Leslie at the time, and she had done her internship, her first year internship with me. I had known her through Leslie. And so I just want to second what she said about watching this kind of evolution of the conference. I know these past 2 years have been incredibly hard to pull this conference off because of COVID. So I just think that needs to be named and recognized. I know that last year it didn't happen in the fall and it happened in the spring. And this year there was a lot of questions whether it could happen or not. And I know that those of you who have been planning this and trying to make this work, there was a lot of angst around that about what to do, so I'm so glad that you did it and it's now. So just a lot of credit to you for, trusting that you could pull this off with however it came about. And I think it's great. I think it's great that there are things offered at different times so that people can get to different things depending on what their life and work schedules might be. So thank you for doing that too. I think for some people, it may feel like it's a little disjointed as opposed to like everybody getting together, but we can't all get together in the traditional way anyway. So I actually thought it was a great idea to do it the way that you did. So thank you so much for doing that. Alec, I know you presented last year, so it's really exciting to see you back here again, round two. Yeah, and I have to give a little shout out to the Leslie rocking passages this year. There are so many Leslie presenters, and 4 of them are first-year people who just started the program, which just thrills me. It's so exciting. So, and that's really what this is meant to be. You know, it's meant to create a community of people who want to share and are willing to take the risk, and know that this is a welcoming and supportive environment. So, so I just wanted to kind of speak to all of those things, but particularly to thank you guys on the board for making this happen in the midst of all the struggle, because I mean, everything is such a struggle at this point. Like, what's okay, what's not okay, what do we do, what's normal, what's not normal, it's just, yeah. So thank you, Toby and Catherine. I know you're both on the board, and all the other people who have been trying to figure out how to make this happen. So it's just not an easy task, and you did it. So yay for you. And I think the t-shirts are beautiful. I can't wait to have one. I should have my other passages shirt on. Maybe I'll go put it on. There was a passages t-shirt 2 years ago at the 20th anniversary, which was the last time it was held in person. We had a fairly good sized soiree at Leslie, which has always been the host school for Leslie. It's always been all 3 schools, but they've always taken place on the Leslie campus, up until a couple of years ago. Now we're in the virtual world, but yeah, I'm going to go put my shirt on. Alec, I'm going to show back up at your presentation with my Passages 2020 t-shirt on, but I think you should go for the t-shirt. I think purple's great. If other colors are hanging you up, go for purple. It's beautiful. Who designed it? How did that come about?
So it was a board effort. So President-elect Emily Grobo, Maria, Vice President for Berkeley, Catherine as well, and Parliamentarian Bridget. I just kind of gave them the leeway to just do whatever. I trust you guys. I know that it's going to turn out great. And, it happened, because part of just building resilience and a path towards unity, we really wanted to show that on the t-shirts. So, we're planning, sometime to, advertise it more after the presentations this weekend. We just have a few things that we need to figure out, but I totally agree with what you're saying about, past 2 years has been really difficult, and it's not easy, but we were very adamant, the board and myself were very adamant about making this happen, whether it was in person or not, because everyone has the right to come to Passages. Everyone deserves to know what it's about, what these presenters can do and talk about, because last semester was different having it in the spring, and now that we can bring it back this year, it's just creating more opportunities for the presenters. And I totally agree with what you were saying, Carol Beth. Totally agree.
Yeah, it's also just the opportunity to continue to create community in different ways, and it's something we need so much in the world, but particularly just within our field. Being able to create community where people can come together and share ideas and ask questions and continue to move forward. I loved what Lee Canby said about a good open-hearted question is a gift. I wrote it down in my book. It's true, these conversations and discussions are just so rich. So, and I really look forward to seeing how that, comes out of your presentations. So yeah. My whole career has been about the desire to exist and create in community, because I feel like it's the heart of what music is about too. It can be a very intrapersonal process as well, but I really feel like the nature of music has always been communal and social and supported, daily life and people being together and doing things. So it's always something I've really felt is such an important part of our work that we need to nurture for the work, but also for ourselves, and so I feel like these conferences are those opportunities to also come together, and hopefully in the spring, NER might actually happen in person. So, and if it doesn't, we'll make it happen anyway. But it would be super cool to be able to be together in person again too. So yeah, I have guitar pick earrings on, by the way. These are former NER-AMTAS efforts as well. So I just need to put my t-shirt on clearly so that I can be, enveloped in the NER-AMTAS passages world. All right, we've rambled on. We've almost filled up the time to 11 o'clock for you, Alec.
That's true. But yeah, Alec, did you need anything else before we started for you?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you.
All right, awesome. And I totally love those guitar pick earrings. I need to find something like that.
Right. So Julianne Paralisi, I believe, was one of the people behind these when she was on the NER-AMTAS board. She's now adjunct faculty at Lesley, and yeah, right. I'll have to, but they had guitar picks made that had, I can't remember, NER-AMTAS on them, with a little symbol, and then they're pretty easy. It's pretty easy to make guitar picks earrings out of guitar picks or other kinds of adornments, pendants. So you could probably take a couple of guitar picks and put a little hole in them and stick a wire in them,
Oh yeah, Michael's has all of the necessities you need. Like I made bracelets.
And we've all got guitar picks, right? So
oh yeah, I have a bunch.
You know how you buy a whole bunch of guitar picks and there's the ones that just don't suit you and you're never really going to use, but you're stuck with them. So yeah, make earrings and pendants for your friends out of them. So. Hi, Bonnie. There's a Bonnie and an Eric there. Bonnie and Eric are both folks from Lesley. And Paige, oh my goodness. Haven't seen Paige for a while. Oh boy, here you go. Eric, see, I told you didn't want to start before 11 o'clock. Hello.
I felt like we were interrupting you, so I laid low.
I'm just rambling on to keep the space open until it's time for Alec to present, so that everybody didn't disappear. Besides that, we're creating community, right? We talk. We've forgotten how to do that on Zoom. So good morning, Svetlana. Svetlana's coming in from California, so
good morning.
Early morning for you over there.
Yeah.
She's also presenting tomorrow. I can't wait for hers as well.
Right. She's one of our presenters, as is Bonnie. So great.
So, may I ask very quickly? So tomorrow, I don't know, half an hour before my presentation, I come into the link and we check the presentation and then how can I share it and so on. Yeah, it will work this way.
Yep, so we can meet 30 minutes beforehand. So what I'll do is I'll enable all participants to share screens. So when you go at the bottom of the Zoom page, you'll see share screen and it's already going to be set up for you.
Okay, thank you, Toby. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hello, Vanessa.
Hi, Alec. So
Nice to
nice
see your
to meet
face.
you. Yeah, you too.
All right, so the time is 11 o'clock. So Alec, you can take the floor and share your screen.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, thank you everyone for putting this on and being here. I really appreciate the opportunity to explore these things that I've been working on and the opportunity to discuss it with you all. So thank you. Oh, whoops. Cool. You can see me now? Awesome. So this is about what's called a neuroplastician's perspective on music therapy, based off of the premise of brain plasticity and facilitating brain change in a more directed way. And this is something I'm really excited about and very inspired by. And I would love to just explore it and have some discussion on how we might incorporate this into music therapy practices. So for an overview, we're just going to define the mechanics of brain plasticity and then explore various therapeutic approaches that are informed by this knowledge, and then again discuss how we might use these methods. And also, of course, it's a very complicated subject, neuroscience, but I'm just going to be very simple here, and then if you would like to read further, you can go into the sources in my references. But I'm just going to make it very simple here. All right, so what is brain plasticity? It's the brain's ability to change its structure and function. So in terms of structure, say when we do ear training as a musician, we are able to differentiate sounds with more sophistication. And really what's happening in the brain is more connections between the neurons where we're able to differentiate and discriminate sounds. And in terms of function, for example, say someone has had a stroke and cannot speak. A lot of times in the rehabilitation process, it's reallocating the speech functions to the opposite hemisphere so that they can learn to speak again, thereby circumventing the damaged part of the brain. And in the neuroscience community, the old view was that the brain was very fixed, universal, and immutable. And this is true to an extent because during the critical period, which is the period very early in life, where every experience, everything we learn makes a very strong impression on the formation of the brain. However, once we get older, for humans around the age 25, the brain becomes a little more solidified and hardwired, as they say. However, the brain is still able to change, although it's based off of behavioral means, which is mental capacities and our ability to focus and actively work and learn something. So the new view now is that the brain can adapt, the brain can learn, and the brain can heal from illnesses, disorders, and injury. So Michael Mersnick is one of the dudes. I say Ed Ellis because there were so many amazing people who contributed to the establishment of brain plasticity as a fact in the field of neuroscience. And he did a lot of work ever since the 1960s up until the present day, conducting studies that contributed to the validation of brain plasticity. So what he did is he used microelectrodes to he placed the microelectrodes on or inside of on or next to neurons, and say he did that to the sensory neurons. And so he would place it next to a sensory neuron, and then it would touch a certain part of the body until that sensory neuron would fire, which indicates that that sensory neuron was responsible for feeling touched in that particular place. I hope this is making sense. And so through a painstaking process of hundreds of hours of mapping that out, he was able to get a map of say, the hand. And then he was able to analyze it and see how it might change the various circumstances. So one of the studies here is that he took, with an adult monkey, so again, a monkey past the critical period, and he mapped out the hand in the brain. And then what he did is that he amputated the middle finger. So what's happening here is that there are specific neurons that are responsible, responsible for specific parts of the body. And it's actually topographically arranged, which means that neurons next to each other in the brain are actually next to each other in the body. So the index and the middle and the ring would be all next to each other. So what happened when he amputated the middle finger was that all the neurons responsible for feeling touched in the middle finger were now dark. They received no stimulation. So what happened after a couple months was he came back and remapped the sensory cortex. And what he found was that basically the neurons for the adjacent fingers had, quote, invaded the sensory map for the middle finger, because there was no activity going on in this area, and that's precious neural real estate that could be used for something else. And so the brain adapted by reallocating the sensory neurons to that region. And so this basically proved that the brain is able to adapt and change based off of environmental circumstances. And there are many other really interesting studies that Merznick did, but I'm just going to mention that one. A lot of it is mentioned in the book The Brain That Changes Itself by Dr. Norman Deutsch. That's a great book. Okay, so in the mechanics, again, I'm going to make this really simple. So it's basically learning can be seen as a two-step process. So the first one is focus and attention. And what happens when you get into a state of focus or surprise, or something that orients you to something that is important, your brain releases acetylcholine from a cluster of neurons in the base of the forebrain called the nucleus basalis. And so this basically goes into the corresponding, the neurons that are engaged in that given task. And they, and they basically make the neurons change according to whatever they need to do to complete that task or to learn a new thing. And then norepinephrine also is released under intense focus and also surprise. And it serves as an amplifier for the inputs that are engaged in that task. And then dopamine, we tend to see dopamine as a pleasure molecule, which absolutely it is. And it's also a motivator molecule. And it's a modulator. So dopamine is released when we achieve a goal. And it's also released when we even think about pursuing a goal. It's something that motivates us to pursue a goal. So those are, of course, it's a very complicated process, but those are some of the three main chemicals that are involved in this process of brain plasticity. And the reason why I'm explaining it this way from the neurochemical point of view is I want to convey that this process of focus and learning very mental things are actually very physical. And because they're physical, it allows us to have a better understanding of how it works and how we might facilitate it just personally and also as a therapist. And then the second stage, this is really important, is rest, actually, because when we are learning and training or practicing doing whatever we're doing, we're making changes in the brain. However, it's in rest when we're actually consolidating the connections. Just like when you're working out in the gym, let's say, and you're doing bicep curls or whatever. What you're doing when you're doing the bicep curls is a lot of times you're actually destroying the muscle a little bit. You're kind of breaking it up, and you're encouraging it to. You're basically pushing it past its limits. And then during the rest, after you rest, that's when your muscle rebuilds itself so that you are stronger the next day. So this is really interesting, actually. This came out of studies that were in the last couple of years. One showed that sleep was very important for the consolidation of new connections in learning, which is quite amazing, I think, because I think we tend to think of learning as something that is just about focus. And I feel as though we kind of undermine the significance and the importance of rest. But this shows that rest is integral and just as important as the learning process. And also, what they found was that even a 10-second rest in the middle of your training session can help to consolidate the changes. Just the 10 seconds of kind of looking away and letting your mind drift, or closing your eyes and taking a breath and relaxing or something. And what's happening here is what they call neural repetitions, where the brain is basically rehearsing what you are training, thereby going over it, practicing it, and solidifying it. So how are we doing so far? Y'all happy? Does this make sense? Hit a thumbs up. Awesome. Cool. So there are very different types of plasticity. Map expansion is what happened with the monkey hand experiment, where various boundaries in neural networks, in this case, the neural network was the sensory network, the sensory map. They can change the boundaries and stuff like that. Also, there was another study conducted by someone named Taub, who I think he invented the transcranial magnetic stimulation, which is basically a paddle-like instrument that can be used as a brain scanner and also to input various frequencies to make artificial action potentials in the brain. And he found in one of his studies that when he was studying the brains of blind people who are learning Braille, was that so they were using the tips of their two fingers to read the Braille, and they found that after they had learned it, the sensory maps for the tip of their two fingers, the middle and index, had actually expanded and become more sophisticated. So just because they were practicing and they were learning a new skill, their brain had changed to accommodate for that skill. And then the second one is sensory reassignment, where one sense can substitute for another. And this is really interesting, actually, because Baki Rita was just one of the main guys who did this back in like the 60s, 80s, something like that. He said something like senses can be transformed into other senses. Like, for example, people who are blind, some of them are able to use sound as sonar, and they can get a picture of their surroundings just through auditory stimuli. And what they do is they click their tongue, and then they're able to get a visual spatial landscape, which is essentially seen. And I find that so fascinating. Also, Bakirita did an eye chair thing. I don't think that's what it's called, but basically it was a chair with vibrators on the back of it and sensors on the top. And it showed the sensors would pick up the visual landscape and then transmute it into vibrations so that the person can feel. So they were able to see basically through the transcription of the auditory sense to the touch sense. And then another thing is the vestibular hat. I'll mention that a little later too. This is really interesting. It's basically I would call it a biofeedback device. That it's a little hat that you put on, and it has a artificial vestibular system, which is the balance system for the brain. And what it does is that it does exactly what the balance system does. You know, if you move your head, then it reads that. and it sends a signal to a little strip. It looks like a little strip of gum that is placed on the tongue. And whenever you move your head to the right, then there would be little champagne bubble-like vibrations that would vibrate on the right side of the tongue. So people with vestibular damage are able to retrain their ability to have a sense of balance with this artificial vestibular system. So interesting. Another thing is compensatory masquerade, which is basically there are multiple ways to process or approach a given task. So say that you're walking around in the city and you're navigating yourself through various landmarks. Like I know where that building is, that tree, whatever. And then you could also navigate yourself through a sense of direction, which is more visual spatial. The last one is mirror region takeover, which, like I mentioned before, is the idea of if one function is damaged on one hemisphere, such as the ability to speak in the Broca's area, which is typically in the left hemisphere for most people. Excuse me. It can be reallocated to the right hemisphere so that they can speak. Also, I think it's important to mention that this is all a really amazing stuff, although plasticity can also go in negative directions too. For example, people who are studying or working maybe like 8 hours a day, clicking a mouse and working on the computer, sometimes they can experience what's called focal hand dystonia, which is basically training the hand to be less functional and less dynamic because all they're doing is clicking the mouse and stuff like that. And so they have less functionality. And this is something, again, that could be rehabilitated. But the point is that this, what we do always makes a significant impression on the brain. And then with attention deficit too, this is really interesting because with modern technology and media, I just want to say, first of all, that modern technology and media is amazing. It's an amazing tool. I feel so blessed to be living in a time where we can access information, basically, any information we want, and also be able to engage and speak to someone around the world instantaneously. That is just so amazing to me, and it's such an amazing tool. However, if we're not in control of our impulsivities, then it's very possible that we might train our attention to in negative ways. And so I think that we've all experienced this to some degree. Say, they have an impulse to, go on your phone and go on Facebook or Instagram or whatever. Which again, they're amazing tools. Although if we're doing it impulsively and also these the programs like social media, all these things, they're really designed to keep your attention and be very short in that way. It could also, if we do it a certain way, then it can train our attention to be less effective. So I think it's something to, first of all, if you find yourself kind of, addicted to looking at your phone or whatever, I think it's important to not judge yourself for that as a negative thing, because it's a very natural thing. It's just the brain. It's a tendency for the brain. I think the most important thing is just to be aware and to make conscious choices on what we're doing and how we are conducting ourselves with the media and how we're using technology, which again, amazing tool. Also with age-related disorders, of course, there are neurodegenerative issues that comes along with aging, which is typically very natural. Although Michael Merznick has done a lot of studies and work with elderly individuals in helping them to rehabilitate their cognitive functions, such as memory and balance, vestibular function, stuff like that. And there was also another study that showed that a brain in an enriched environment, meaning that there are a lot of things to play with, there are a lot of other people to interact with, stuff like that. Actually, this was with rats, so other rats to interact with. they were less susceptible to neurodegenerative disorder and disease. And also, another important point that Mersnick makes is that a brain that isn't learning is basically basically declining. And so, if you want to keep your brain sharp through old age, it's important that you're always learning new things and practicing new things, thinking in new ways. And addiction too. So addiction changes the structure of the brain, can change the structure of the brain tremendously. And also, for example, there's people who, or men who say get addicted to pornography. What can happen there is that they can become impotent and also are unable to connect intimately with their loved one, even if they find their loved one objectively attractive. And what is happening here is a change in the map. Again, there are many maps for the brain, and this is the sexual pleasure map. And if we're not careful about how we conduct ourselves with that, then that can be changed in a negative way. And I think that it's, kind of an uncomfortable thing to talk about, but I think it's kind of important because I think it kind of happens a lot, and it's not something we talk about very much. So I think it's good to have in discussions on all this stuff. And also people talk, so basically as a conclusion, people talk about plasticity, I want to increase plasticity. You don't necessarily want to increase plasticity. You want to actively facilitate your plasticity, your plastic process. And the Hebbian rule is use it or lose it. I'm sure you've heard that before. And actually that was introduced by Freud about like 60 years before Hebb introduced it. Freud actually, his work was very placent because all of his work on psychodynamics and stuff like that were based off of concepts of plasticity and how things that are put together, neurons that are wired together, fired together, wired together, will be associated, and then likewise things that are not will not be associated. So he had quite some foresight in that way. Also, that being said, there are many people who have alluded to this concept of neuroplasticity, although it just wasn't really an established thing. It wasn't really accepted the last couple hundred years. So all those ideas kind of went by the wayside. But now we are in a new paradigm, which I think is very beneficial for all of us. Okay, so this is from Dr. Andrew Huberman. I think I'm doing okay on time. He's talking about how to optimize learning. So he did a really cool presentation for Logitech. It's called Rethink Education. I highly recommend it. It's in my references. It's basically, what he did is basically explain the neurochemical mechanics and then the importance of rest, and then he gave a super protocol, what he called it, for how to facilitate learning in a more effective and efficient manner. So the first two steps is first step is to get alert, just aroused, awake, and also to get focused. And there are many ways that he mentioned to do this. One way he mentioned was to focus the eyes on the distance at which you will be studying or practicing or learning whatever you're doing, so that you are engaging your brain to function in that way. And also he did something where he wrote a little target, and he said to focus on that point. I think if you focus on any point, that suffices for that exercise. And then to generate repetitions, of course. I mean, I think that all these things are very obvious, but this is a new perspective on how it works, which again I think is a very, very beneficial because it's a more physical understanding of how learning and focus works. So of course the repetitions, the more you do it, the more your brain gets practice on that, of course. And then to expect and embrace errors. I think a lot of times people, when they have errors, they're like, oh man, like I'm not doing it, what's wrong with me? But really, the more errors you make, the more your brain is adjusting and honing in on exactly what you're doing. So whenever you make a mistake, it's actually a good thing because your brain is like, okay, now I see that as a failure, and now we are re-aiming to do it. So it's a good thing. And then I mentioned the randomly inserted micro rest is what they called it. Just very randomly, just, every once in a while, take your eyes off for just a few seconds. Pay attention to your body, or I mean, any kind of rest or meditation. You can pay attention to your body. You can take a breath. You can look out the window, all these things. And again, what's happening in the brain when we are taking a micro rest, is that the brain is going through neural repetitions, practicing and solidifying what we are learning. And then random intermittent reward is basically for a dopamine hit. And you can reward yourself however way. Although you don't want to make it very, very regular, these rewards. Say if Dr. Huberman mentions that, say if you need to say listen to music or do something that satisfies you, makes you feel good in order to work out, then what you're doing is that you are kind of placing together two different type of dopamine responses, or dopamine hits, which in the long term can cause irregularities and imbalances. So I think it's important to not focus on the reward when we are studying and practicing. And then he says to limit learning to 90-minute sessions. This is what he calls the ultradian cycle, which is basically a cycle of energy and our ability to focus. Because again, it's a neurochemical process. These are resources, and it takes a lot of energy. So a 90-minute session is the optimal time, according to him, for studying and learning something. And then a 10 to 30-minute post-learning NDSR, which is non-sleep deep rest. So basically, it's just meditation. It's nap time, which I love. I love the idea of having nap time as a scientifically validated part of learning. And then maximize quality of sleep. I mentioned that before. How that's important for the consolidation of what we're learning. Okay, so now we're getting into the therapies. So, of course, NMT, I'm sure you're all familiar with NMT, but just as a review, NMT is based off of the premise of brain plasticity, and it's using music to target neurological functions. And it can be used for many different populations. So the technique melodic intonation therapy, what we're doing is we are helping people to regain their ability to speak. So the protocol is to hum the melody first, and then to engage with their left hand, to tap their left hand as to engage with the right hemisphere, and then to have them sing it, and you're fading it out so that they can do it on their own, and then it echoes so that it's more of it requires them to stop and then redo the process. Basically, what we're doing is really fascinating. Actually, we are reestablishing the connections, or establishing new connections, using music as a scaffold. Because music is very important here, because it engages the brain in a very novel way. It engages and synchronizes many parts of the brain. So it's a very effective tool for facilitating this process. And I like the idea of seeing music as a scaffold for this. Really very fascinating. And then this is what I mentioned with the biofeedback thing, the vestibular helmet. So Cheryl, what happened with her is that she was prescribed an antibiotic that basically damaged her vestibular function. And it was pretty much completely non-functional. Like, she was completely unable to stand. She couldn't work. She couldn't do anything. And whenever she, got up or moved in any way, she would feel like she is falling, And even she felt like that the floor was opening up and she was just kept on falling. So that's basically what happens when our vestibular function is damaged. And so the doctors told her, sorry, you're a lost cause. There's nothing we can do about that. And then she went to Baki Rita, who gave her this device. And it's really interesting because she was able to use the device to artificially um, conduct her own balance. And of course, when she took it off, then she wasn't able to balance anymore. But what happened was really interesting is that the more she had the hat on, the more her brain was able to adjust and adapt, and she had longer periods of time where she could go without the vestibular hat. And then eventually she was just completely healed, where she didn't need to wear the hat at all, and now she can ride a bike and drive and work and everything. And so it's I think what's happening here is that she was reallocating the vestibular functions to something else through the touch sense. So interesting. And then Fast Forward was developed by a team of neuroscientists for children with learning disorders. And it helped them to train their auditory processing, linguistic, all this type of stuff. And it's designed based off of the neurochemical mechanics that I mentioned before. I'm kind of running out of time, but if you would like to look into that, that's a really interesting thing. And then Brain HQ is more for typical individuals. It can also be used for people with learning disabilities as well. A habilitative training program. I call it habilitative because it's not necessarily rehabilitative. Habilitative meaning you are helping them to develop their skills in the same way that you're helping a physical trainer or a personal trainer is helping their client to develop their body and to cultivate the muscles in their body or whatever. Same thing with mental skills, which, like I said, mental faculties such as memory, attention, information processing, sensory processing, all that stuff is a very physical thing. Yeah, so he made this is now the part where I'd like to explore how we might incorporate this into our music therapy practice. And what I did here was create a musical version of this Huberman super protocol. So I'm going to share that right now. Oh, whoops. Yeah, 1 second. How we doing? Is this cool? Awesome. And we're kind of running out of time, so I think that what I'm going to do, actually, I would love to explore and have a discussion with you all. So what I'm going to do is just post it later, and you could check it out and see. It's just a prototype on how we might be able to facilitate this learning process using music. But yeah, I would love to open it up now and see what you think about it, and what
Alec, you are doing good on time if you do want to show that video.
Oh yeah? Yeah, it's about 10 minutes, and so I think I have until 45, correct?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I would love in the next 10 minutes to explore. If anyone would like to, discuss.
Yeah, I agree. I think it would be great to see that. And then, we'd still have a few minutes left. If people wanted to ask questions, maybe you could hang around for, there's a little bit of a break before the next one anyway. So.
Okay.
Yeah,
no problem.
I think it'd be great to see what you've come up with.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so I'm just going to share my sound. Okay, so this is the first part of it. these are two tracks, basically, to facilitate your ability to get into focus and then your ability to relax your body, which again, like I said, is a two-step process to learning very efficiently. And it's important to note that this music is not meant to be a magic pill to get you into these states. It's meant to help you get into these states. So these are meant to come with instructions for what your how to get into the state of focus for this first part. So what I recommend is just sit comfortably in your chair, be aware of your body, and allow your eyes to settle. Focus your eyes on a particular point on your screen. And what I mean by focus your eyes is that both of your eyes are focused, looking at one thing at once, rather than, if you have the 1,000-mile stare and it's kind of not as focused, you want to focus your eyes. I hope that makes sense. Cool. We good? Also, I recommend turn down your volume just a little bit, maybe to like 75% or something, just to make sure that this isn't too loud for you. It's going to fade in too. Okay, here we go.
Take a deep breath. Prolong the inhale. Thoughts dissolve. Eyes focused. Feet on the ground. Straight posture. Take a deep breath. Prolong the inhale. Thoughts dissolved. Eyes focused.
So the point there was that when you sit down to study or practice, you get yourself into the state of focus using this track so that you can optimize your learning process. And then you go through your training or practicing, whatever it is. And then what you do afterwards is to the NSTR, the non-sleep deep rest. In the track here, excuse me. Well, almost there. Okay, so here's the relaxation one. So for this, again, you've finished all your training, and now you are allowing yourself to relax so that you can consolidate the learning. So get yourself comfortable in your seat. You can have your eyes open or closed. Whatever position you'd like is all good. And again, please have your volume at 75% or something, so in case it's too loud for you.
This is your time to relax. Just for this moment, allow yourself to let go of your thoughts and worries. . of your breath. Watch it rise and fall naturally. Now become aware of your skin. Feel the touch of your clothes and feel the surface you rest on. Inhale, exhale. With each breath, you are releasing all tension and relaxing your muscles. If thoughts come through, that is okay. No need to change it. Simply be aware of it as a passive observer. Watch the thoughts as they enter your mind and allow them to pass. Imagine your attention is a spotlight. Wherever your attention goes, the light follows. The light starts at the top of your head. It feels warm and relaxing. It flows down your forehead, cheeks, jaw, down your neck, shoulders, through the arms, shining out the fingertips, down the chest, supporting the back, down the belly, the pelvis, down the legs, into the feet. Now your whole body is filled with light and it gets brighter with each breath. Expand into your surroundings as you inhale and exhale. Enjoy this feeling and remember that this stillness is always with you. Take a deep breath and come back when you're ready.
Okay, so excuse me. So again, this was a prototype for ways transforming this protocol into a musical activity. How's that for everybody? was the first track something that were you able to get yourself into a state of focus, or did you sense a change in your mind state of mind? Yeah, that relaxation piece is amazing. Thanks, Bonnie. Well, anyway, oh yeah, also, I'm going to give you my references. A lot of fascinating references here. First of all, I'm just going to show you. Oh, hang on. A couple books that I recommend, and then I'm going to give you a document with all the references on it. So for this, really good book. Okay, yeah. So the Brain That Changes Itself. This is amazing book. I highly recommend it. Fascinating. And also he has another one too called The Brain's Way of Healing, and they mention a lot of stuff about music in that one. And then Soft Wired by Malcolm Merzenich. This one is really interesting too. And then Changing Brains. This is a textbook, so this one is pretty intense. Applying brain plasticity to advance and recover human ability. This is really interesting because it goes again into the mechanics of it, and then how it's applied to therapeutic interventions, and also how we might be able to advance our abilities. Thank you very much. And so, yes, I would love to, if anyone has any questions or, ideas or discussions, please feel free to speak up.
I love your soundscape in the background, Alex. It's great.
Yeah. I'm in the mountains, so I got chickens and dogs everywhere.
That's great. I just really appreciate this really simple concept of the balance between focus and rest, because I just feel like we've completely lost the rest component in our culture. Like everything is just go, 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 go all the time until you have no choice but to crash. And I remember reading a book a long time ago by Mark Ryder that talked about, I can't remember the title of it. If I remember it, I'll send it to you. But it talked about this whole need to let your brain also shift. Like when you're engaged in one thing for too long, one part of your brain is working so hard and you really need to let it shift. So it reminded me a little bit of that too, the kind of brain shifting. But the rest piece, I was just like, oh, thank you. It's so important. And I love this pairing of music with it. It's a great idea, because we know that, music can focus your attention. So it makes me think about how you would do this, actively making music. How would you use music to help someone focus and then get their work done? And then, kind of parallels like a session where you have something that engages people, you do the work, and then you have the closing of the session. So I really see the application of this. And so one of my questions for you is how do you choose the music? That's always one of those questions we always ask. You have very specific kind of style of music in these particular pieces, but I just wonder what your thoughts are about that. And thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. This basically what I chose for the instrumentation and the composition here was for the focus one. I wanted to have a very driving rhythm, and for the melody, something that's constant and rather predictable, but at the same time, every once in a while, kind of does something different that is not as expected. Excuse the noise outside. And just kind of also, and the other thing is the pads with kind of ambient background. Also the white noise too. I forgot to mention the white noise, is that he mentioned that it helps to stimulate. Basically, what it's doing, it's every frequency, and there are specific frequencies for registering specific. Or I'm sorry, specific frequencies responsible for registering specific frequencies. Neurons for frequencies. I'm sorry. And so what you're doing when you're doing white noise is you're stimulating every neuron, and that can be something that is very, very stimulating and kind of gets you to wake up. So that's basically the premise on how it was composed. For the relaxation one, I did a very familiar chord progression with just the pads as a ambient kind of background, and then a melody that was very simple, and my intention was to be calming. And I think that when we work with people, we have these basic ideas on like predictability and how all that stuff. But also, I think it's important for us to tailor the music specifically to a given person, to their interests, to their cultural background, to all these different things, in order to really make the most out of this process.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Anyone else? I'd love to hear some ideas or questions.
I want to say thank you as well. First of all, because you simply spoke about complicated things, and maybe main idea which I take with myself, it's ideas of NEPs, because I used to think that the best rest is the changing of activities, and practically I lived all my life in this paradigm, but as a result, it's what Sarah Beth said, that I run in one activity, then jump in another activity, and I'm active again and again and again and again. And a long time, I didn't understand what is it meditation, and like didn't work for me. But it looks like I begin, I understand that sleep for me always was the sacred thing, because I felt it so strongly that something happens in my mind. But now it looks like, thank you for your musical piece, because I understand that I want at least to try to do not just another activity, but to give myself the time for slow downings, for real rest. So thank you.
Absolutely, thank you for that. Yeah, rest is so powerful. Definitely underestimated the significance of rest. So yeah, I think that this also helps us a lot too. A new paradigm for how we learn. For me personally, rest and going outside and just enjoying nature or whatever. That's actually an important part of my training process. In this, it's a beautiful thing, because it means that we don't need to stress ourselves out about all the stuff. We don't need to be working on ourselves all the time in that way, because rest and everything, reflection, everything like that is all so integral and equally important in the learning process. So to me, that's quite a relief.
Hey, thank you so much. I really enjoyed your presentation. And the rest idea is really striking for me. I work with kids and I do music lessons. I teach, usually it's a 45-minute group lesson, because that's what parents or organizations want. They want like a full 45 minutes. But I usually find that it sort of exceeds the attention span of the little children that I'm working with. So I really am interested in integrating a little, even if it's just a moment or a minute of rest for the child to refocus in the middle of class even, so that they can re-engage and I can get their attention throughout the rest of the time together. I think that's really interesting and gives me some hope for my classes not getting to this point where everyone's overwhelmed and overstimulated at the end of 45 minutes together.
Absolutely, I love that. I think that's a very, very good way to go about it, especially with kids. because kids are taking in information like crazy. They are absorbing everything. So you really don't need to work very hard to train kids. You know, just being exposed to an experience makes an impression on their brain, and the rest aspect is, yeah, so crucial. So I appreciate your intuition on that. Thank you, Bonnie.
I'm just going to say that graphic that I just popped in there, I just found that like night before last. It just kind of randomly showed up somewhere that I was looking at. And we had just had a conversation in the supervision class that I teach on Wednesday nights about the importance of rest and how much we don't do it. And, you know, interns and students feeling pretty burnt out already. And it's the beginning of November and, you know, all that. So, and that graphic just showed up like later that evening in, I don't know, Instagram or somewhere, you know, and so I've been spreading it to everyone. So how appropriate for today that I could share it with you.
Nice. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Cool. So I think we have until noon, yeah?
Maybe I will ask the last question. As far as I understood, it's your music, your creator.
I'm sorry, would you repeat that?
As far as I understood, the music which you offered, it is your music. You designed it. Yes,
yes, I
you
produced
have your channel, I think. Can you put it in the chat, because it's nice pieces and we can use them maybe?
Yeah, absolutely. I really appreciate your interest in it. So again, as I said, this is a prototype for the protocol, and I actually haven't published it yet. And so what I might do actually is put it onto YouTube. And is it possible for me to follow up and send everybody the link for that? Okay, cool. Yeah, so I'll do that, and then yeah, again, I appreciate your interest in it. So I'll post it on YouTube, and yeah, for your, I'm at your service.
Do you have a YouTube channel, Alec, or would you just make it for this?
I do have a YouTube channel, yeah.
Okay, so maybe we could all just check your channel at some point if you want to just give us maybe the
sure,
the channel link now, then we could just go back and look at it later and see if it's there.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
And maybe even I would like to inspire Alec to do it more, because internet is full of different music for rest, but it's for hours and it's just music without no underlying protocol. So it's very nice if professionals will do it. Not everybody, but people who understand what we want and how long it should be and so on.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you, Alex. That was a really informative session. Yeah. And also, if you want to send that link, the best way might be sending it to the Berkeley VP so they can send it out. But Toby might know a little bit more about that. Toby is going to restart the meeting because she's having some problems with her laptop. So it's going to close out, but it's the same link. So we're going to have Sarah next at 12:15 for the next presentation. And again, like it's same link, Toby's just going to close out to reset.
Cool. Thank you all so much. I appreciate you.
Thanks, Alex. Great to see you again.
Peace.